Serie A is officially over. It's time to do le pagelle, and I say over, but there's actually one more game. The Atalanta-Fiorentina on June 2nd. Won't change the ratings of the teams. It might actually change the Classifica, as Atalanta could actually move on top of Juventus if they win. But we won't talk about it right away. Right now, let's start from the worst to the best, the top of the class. So worst, of course, La Salernitana, they get a big fat 0. Why? Because only 2 wins on the season, 25 losses, 17 points, and 81 goals against. Incredible. So they don't deserve anything. They get relegated to Serie B and they get a 0. Napoli gets a 2. Why? Because they are the worst exiting champions of all time. They finished 10th in the league out of all European competition, and all season was a mistake after mistake after mistake. Hiring Garcia to replace Spalletti was a mistake. Firing Garcia and replacing him with Mazzari was another mistake. Firing Mazzari to replace him with Calzona was another mistake. And so not a very good year for Napoli. And they're already talking about a revolution. Osimhen might be leaving. Di Lorenzo wants to leave. We don't know what's going to happen with Vara. He has offers from Barca and PSG. They're saying Conte might come in as a head coach. We'll see, but it's going to be a very busy summer for ADL. Sassuolo gets a 3. After 11 years in Serie A, they are relegated to Serie B. Only 22 losses to the season. Only second to Salernitana. Horrible season for them. Yes, I'm sure their season was sort of influenced by the Berardi injuries. Maybe they decided to trust in somebody like in Pinamonti, who didn't have a great season. And so they justly get relegated to Serie B. That's what happens when you keep selling your best players every year and you reinvest less and less. So Carnevale will have to work hard next year to bring them back to Serie A. Udinese gets a 5. 5, why? Because they only saved themselves on the last day, the last game of the season. For a team that's been in Serie A for 30 years, we are expecting a lot more from them. Let's be honest. They decided to trust in a kid like Luca to replace Beto. Although he didn't have a horrible season, he was never going to score the same amount of goals. He didn't have that experience. And so they're going to have to reinvest into this team big time if they want to stay in Serie A next year. Because if they sell Samardžić, which they almost did last year, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have stayed in Serie A. So if they sell him this summer, they don't replace him with somebody good and well reinvested money in this team, it's not going to happen. So Udinese gets a 5. Frosinone gets a 5. Frosinone gets relegated on the last day by a goal from Davis and Udinese. Guys, Frosinone, you can only blame them for one thing. Keeping Di Francesco. Trusting Di Francesco that he wouldn't relegate them in Serie B. So they had a first half of the season that was decent. Their second half was horrible, and management didn't have the courage to fire Di Francesco, and it cost them Serie A. Roma gets a 5.5. Their season can be divided in two, the Mourinho era and the De Rossi era. If you look at the Mourinho era, you're thinking about a 2. If you're looking at De Rossi, you might think an 8. So at the end, I give them a 5.5. They didn't have the courage to sack Mourinho before. Could it have changed something? Maybe. It did have a boost immediately after when De Rossi came in. They went on to that great stretch, but you saw that they were missing some gas at the end, losing key games. Obviously, the Europa League exit against Bayer Leverkusen, but they lost those key games for the Champions League against Atalanta, a direct rivalry, right? A direct rival, and the last game against Empoli that could have maybe secured them the last spot in Champions League for the 6th team. But they go and lose that game 2-1. Juventus gets a 6. Why? Because just like Roma, you can divide this team or this season in 2. Before Christmas and after Christmas. If you look at the before Christmas, they get an 8, maybe even an 8+, because they were battling with Inter for that Scudetto. They lose to Inter, Christmas comes around, and then it's a disaster. A disaster. That second part of the season, the second half, horrible. Il girone di ritorno, you can take it, throw it in the garbage, and so they get a 6. Thiago Motta is going to have to do a lot of work next season. They blamed everything on Allegri this year. I'm not sure it's all on his shoulders. The team is what it is. They didn't play well the second half, so we'll see what happens there. They did bring home a Coppa Italia and a Champions League spot. So a overall passing season for Juve. Lazio gets a 6 as well. Lazio, far cry from the team that we saw finish second the year before. A lot of flops this year. Kamada was a flop. If they thought they were bringing him in to replace Milinkovic-Savic, they were shot themselves in the foot. Immobile is far, far away from the player that he was. Only 7 goals this year. And Sarri at one point said, enough with these prima donnas. I'm going home. And they hired Tudor. Tudor did so-so, some good, some bad, nothing crazy. And so Lazio gets a 6 defensively. Not that great this year. Verona gets a 6.5. They saved themselves. They had the courage to admit that their first half was wrong. They readjusted at Christmas. Their second half was better, and they stay in Serie A. So Verona gets a 6.5. Genoa, Fiorentina, Monza, Torino, Lecce, I sort of bunched up as a 6.5 plus. The only team out of there that could actually do better maybe would be Fiorentina. If they win the Conference League, then their season would go up to an 8.5, because winning a European Cup is always something special. So Genoa, under Gilardino, for the first year, did great. They brought in some good players like Retegui. Messia was a flop for them, but overall they did fairly well. La Salvezza was achieved a long time ago. They didn't sweat it, so good for them. Torino, under Juric, could have done better. So-so season. But all these teams are the teams that fight for those spots between 8 and 12, 7 and 12, something like that, right? So they're all bunched up. It's all about the same thing. The only team that in there that would actually get more, like I said, is Fiorentina, or that you expected more from was Fiorentina. So for their Serie A season, they might just get a 6.5. If they bring them the co-op, like I said, then you move it up. Monza, the first year without Berlusconi, they didn't have the same budget. They couldn't do the same buying power. So we saw them sell Carlos Augusto. They decided to sell Petagna, bring in Colombo. Didn't really pan out for them. Colpani didn't have the same type of season. Pessina was our best player. Overall, Monza, I think they finished 12th, 11th, something like that. 12th. So, yeah, in that position, that's what you expect, 6.5. Lecce saves itself fairly easy. They didn't sweat it this year, so good job on them. My Milan, I was undecided if I was going to give a 7.7 minus or a 6.5 plus. At the end, I give them a 6.5 plus. Yes, second spot is great, but your season was horrible. Too many ups and downs. Jekyll and Hyde season. 49 goals against is a atrocious amount to give away for a team that won the Scudetto based on their defense. It's the same defense, guys. So horrible. Tomori not recognizable this season. Leao only 9 goals. Giroud, the biggest goal scorer, 15 goals, is now departing the team. Pioli is departing the team as well. They're saying Fonseca is coming in. Is that the right move? Big question mark. I think it's going to be another Garcia. We'll talk about it in another dedicated video. Empoli, I give them a 7 minus. Incredible end to the season. They were a foot down in Serie B, and they managed a miracle. A miracle, scoring at the 93rd minute against the Roma. It wasn't an easy thing to do. They bring home the result. Nicola, a great coach that saved multiple teams from Serie B, Crotone, Genoa, Torino, Salernitana, and this year even Empoli, deserves a statue. I hope they don't kick him up. I hope they keep him for next year. And so they get a 7 minus. Cagliari gets a 7. Cagliari gets a 7 because they had the courage to walk up to Ranieri and say, please don't go. We need you. We trust you, and you're going to save us. And that's exactly what he did. He already said that he's not coming back next year. They're going to have to reinvest into this team, make sure they don't have to battle this hard for La Salvezza next year. But for this year, they trusted in their coach, and it paid off. And so, good season for them at the end. They saved themselves. They stay in Serie A, and that's all that mattered. Bologna gets an 8.5. Incredible season, incredible stats. Motta built a team that everybody hated to play. He gave them a tough style of play, a creative style of play. They were fun to watch. They achieved the Champions League. They finished 5th overall. They hadn't done so in 60 years. They hadn't achieved a Champions League spot in 60 years. Saputo, the owner, will have to figure it out on who will replace Thiago Motta. It won't be easy. but what an incredible season for them. Motta, of course, moving on to Juve. Atalanta gets a 9, guys. Atalanta gets a 9. They are currently 4th. They could possibly finish in 3rd spot. Incredible season. They won the Champions League head-to-head against Roma. It was a crucial game for them. They won that game. They go against a team that hadn't lost for 51 games, and they put them in their back pocket. They dominated that game against Bayer Leverkusen. They bring home the Europa League. For a team like Atalanta, that is not something that is very common or even very possible. Gasperini has done a tremendous job with this team. And once again, he will show loyalty to this team because he's already turned down the Napoli job. It seems like he's going to stay and he's going to go back into the Champions League with his team. What a great way to continue the momentum than with Gasperini. He's done a great job with them in the last couple of seasons. And so, incredible. And if they finish 3rd, it's even better. And then, of course, you have Inter, 9.5 for this Inter team. Almost a perfect season. 94 points, only 2 losses to the season. They scored 89 goals. They only allowed 22. And the only black spot of this season is the early exit of the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. Inzaghi did a great job. Marotta did a great job building this team, bringing in the Turams, the Pavard, replacing Onana by Sommer. Onana, horrible this season with Manchester United, 60 million euros. They bought Sommer for like something like 2. I don't know. It was something incredible. So great. And Lautaro finishes top scorer of the league. So overall, a very good Inter team, very well balanced. Every part of the team was built to perfection, whether it be the strikers, whether it be the centrocampo, whether it be the defensa, the goalies, like well thought out, great team. They didn't break the 100-point mark, but overall a fantastic season. Let me know what you think. Write in the comments. I want you to write in the comments your ratings for all the teams from top to bottom. Have a great soccer day. Let me know, guys.